am here again from the confines of my bedroom, mainly because my living room is in a state of disarray. Personal note, I'm having a kitchen fitted this week, so I've got nowhere else to sit. While that's been going on, I've been doing a lot of laptop-based Netflix watching because I can't actually see my TV right now. And I've been having a binge watch of Horrible Histories, which is a show that I used to love when it first came out, and now that I've rewatched it, it does not get any less funny. In fact, I think I get more jokes in there now, which is weird because I was at uni when it first came out, so I wasn't a kid when it first came out, but there's references and stuff in there that I just didn't clock first time round. Like, it's so clever. If that had come out when I was a child, I would have been obsessed with that show. Like, I'm obsessed with it now. So you can only imagine what like 7-year-old history me would have thought of it. Because I used to have the books, so watching it on screen would have just made my day. Yeah, some bits in there like historical MasterChef or the bit where they take off the apprentice, it just honestly made me like cry laughing. And it kind of got me thinking that there are a lot of kids shows out there that are actually really clever and actually kind of not adult as in rude, but adult as in adults would laugh at them too. And I started thinking about some of the shows that I used to watch when I was a kid that I really, really enjoyed, and that were kind of in that sort of vein. And because I've been doing a lot of Netflix watching, I've been thinking about the shows that I would love Netflix to put on to kind of take me back to my childhood. And I'll take you through some of them, and they'll probably help explain kind of my sense of humour and why it is what it is today, because a lot of them are very me. The first show that I would love to see on Netflix and come back is Maid Marian and Her Merry Men, which is kind of what it sounds. It's Robin Hood, but it's Maid Marian that's the hero. In Maid Marian and Her Merry Men, which was written by Tony Robinson, incidentally, so, you know, Time Team, big history geek, and also Blackadder, so that kind of dry, slightly near the knuckle for kids sense of humour. Also had a bit of like Thatcher-based satire because I'm old enough to be born in the Thatcher era. There was a little like few digs, sort of like the Tory government of the very early 90s, which I find like hilarious when I watched an episode not so long ago. But it would have totally slipped over my head at the age of like 4 or whatever it was that I was watching it at. I would love Netflix to put that on so I could fully see that through and see kind of how much they managed to get away with in there. I mean, Matt Billingham's one of the Sheriff of Nottingham's henchmen, who, if you don't know, used to be a stand-up comedian and now writes really grisly crime novels, which is a bit of a leap, but it's that kind of slightly gallows humour that really, really stands out in Maid Marian and Her Merry Men, and that's kind of probably why he was chosen, because he's just ideal for that. The whole premise is that Robin Hood is basically useless. He's a poser, he trips over his own feet, he has absolutely no intention of being anyone's hero. He just kind of plods along and accidentally ends up taking credit for things, and all the girls like him, but really he's just a bit wet. And Maid Marian is the one that does all the heroic deeds and manages to get them out of scrapes and just kind of plods around with like dreadlocks and cool clothes and has all the bright ideas, which I really, really loved when I was little. I loved that Maid Marian was that cool. And like as an adult, I think that's a really big deal for kids' TV, that the girls on kids' TV nowadays are kind of, I hate to say it, but a bit more vacuous and a bit more concerned with like boys and makeup and stuff like that. When I was little and we watched Maid Marian, she was just like, I can shoot better than you, Robin. I'm going to be the hero. And what? And I loved that. I think that probably explains a lot of who I am as a person, to be honest, that I watched stuff like that in my formative years. So yeah, I'd love that to have another outing. I'd love people to get behind that on Netflix. I think it's funny. It's that Blackadder. It's like Blackadder Junior, if I had to describe it. It's like they took the bits of Blackadder and went, we can't show that to kids and we can't show that to kids, took them out and just distilled it into a kid's format, but with that same sarcastic dryness. So that's my first choice of things that I'd like to come back. My second choice would be the Renford Rejects, which I'm not even a football fan, but I reckon about 50% of my lifetime's football watching was in the form of the Renford Rejects. I don't even know why I used to love this show so much, because not into football, and there was a lot of like football-y references. Um, but also it was just about like friendships, and it was they used to have random guest stars, like the Honeys were on it one time for reasons that I honestly couldn't even explain to you, but they were. Um, it was about this team of footballers, like kid footballers, well, like 14, 15, I guess, and they were basically the rejects from all the other teams in the area because they were crap. Like the goalkeeper was really into poetry and wore his glasses all the time and often had a book on the I don't know, in the goal. I'm sure there's a technical term, but it stood in the goal with a book. There was one guy that used to do it. It was a Napoleon Italian accent, but it was hilarious. Because all the big footballers at the time, I guess, were Italian, and he wanted to be like them, so he used to be like, "Hey, I kick the ball," and stuff like that. And he didn't drop the accent, apart from one episode where someone called him out on it and was like, "You're just a terrible British teenager." And then he dropped the accent, and it was like traumatic, and they had to get him to go back to being his false self, because that was the one that they knew. It was a slightly terrible message, really, but that was him. There was always a girl footballer that had been rejected from the other clubs because she was a girl, but was actually really, really good. I mean, in the first series, she went off to go play for a proper team. That's why the actress left. Well, it's not why the actress left. She didn't go play. She just carried on acting. But the character left because she got accepted into the women's juniors of a proper club. I want to say Tottenham Hotspur. I could be wrong. It's something, they were proper anyway, that she went to go play for. That was her whole parting storyline. Then there was the injured kind of old timer, very very sage, very wise, always had a stick, but used to play for the team, and that was that. There was the cafe owner where they all hung out. The cafe was called Graceland, and he was obsessed with Elvis, and he had a wife that you never saw. Like, she was always behind the counter, but she always had a pan just there, so you couldn't quite see her, but you could hear her, and her arms were waving and all this, but you never saw her face, ever. That was kind of part of her whole mystique, if you like. My favourite character was always Jason Summerby. He was the captain, and I don't know why, but he always wore a Hull City shirt, even though he's like spectacularly Cockney. He always had a Hull City shirt, and I don't know why, but he did. He was my favourite character. He's also in real life the cousin of the kid that played Jim Hawkins in Muppet Treasure Island, so that was a nice little connection of two things that I really, really loved as a child. Yeah, so the little fun fact for you. But yeah, Renford Rejects definitely needs to come back. They used to have guest stars, like proper football commentating guest stars. They used to. There was one character that had his own little like TV show, although it was never fully explained where the TV show aired, because it was before the days of like web episodes and stuff. I never really understood what he was filming for, but he did. And he always used to have like the proper football commentators for Match of the Day on. Like, I guess nowadays he'd have like Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer, but at the time he had like Alan Hansen and people like that used to come and go, "That was a great kick from Summerby." It was just so random. How they pitched that to them, I don't properly understand, but they did. So that was good. That I always enjoyed that. And do you know what? I'd love an update. Not even just like putting it back on Netflix, which they should definitely do, but they should remake it with where they are today. It could be like a team of adults that never really made it as professional footballers but still have a kickabout on a Sunday or something. I just had a brilliant idea. Like, seriously, somebody hit the cast up. Like, somebody's got to be down for that. I'd watch that. So yeah, so that needs to go on. Kids show that nobody ever remembers, but I used to really, really enjoy. It was called Pirates, and the entire premise was that some pirates, for whatever reason, had been evicted off the boat and now lived in a council house. And when I say pirates, I mean like proper, you know, how you imagine stereotypically like 17th, 18th century pirates, like the women had corsets and the men had the hats and and all this. Um, but there was weird characters in there, like there was a baby in a pram that you never saw, but always like the pram used to rock aggressively and it glowed sometimes and shot cannonballs and weird stuff like that. Liz Smith was the gran, who Liz Smith was a gran in everything for the entirety of my childhood. Um, so yeah, she was on there. There was a character whose name, I kid you not, was Man in a Sack because he was a man in a sack. But I mean, it was silly. And the storylines used to be like the neighbours would complain because they were firing cannons at 3 in the morning and stuff, and they couldn't see a problem with it. It doesn't sound very good. It sound as an adult, I'm on the side of the neighbours because if my neighbours were firing cannons, I'd be like putting a noise complaint. But as a child, you're like these people are cool. So I'd like to see that again. But nobody ever remembers it. I sometimes say it to people, "Oh, do you remember Pirates where there was a man in a sack?" And they just look at me like, "What?" Um, but yeah, that Monster Cafe is another one that nobody remembers. It was a cafe run by monsters. I'd like to see that on Netflix just to prove that it exists. I can't remember much about it, but like Frankenstein's monster was like a waiter and a mummy used to do the cooking or something like that and used to get in all these scrapes in the cafe. Um, I, who had signed them off for a food safety certificate? I couldn't tell you, but yeah, that was another one. People do remember and doesn't get enough love. My parents are aliens. Like honestly, Brian from My Parents Are Aliens is one of the funniest kids characters of all time. And you know what? You see the actor whose name I can't remember to save my life in various things now. He was in Bluestone 4 too, and he used to make me laugh my head off in that. So I mean, he's clearly just he's a brilliant actor, but he's a brilliant comic actor as well. But My Parents Were Aliens were great because you kind of related to all 3 kids. So I'd be interested to watch that again to see which kid I'm most like now. Like there was Josh Barker, who was a bit of a junior wheeler dealer. I'll say he was a bit of a rogue, always trying it on. Proper late 90s gelled up hair and everything. Um, there was Mel, who was a bit kind of alternative, bit not gothy, but she always a bit like slightly punky. And her best friend who clearly had the hots for her, and she just used to be oblivious to it for most of the time. Um, she was good. She was slightly the voice of reason. That she was like, "This is crazy, people. This is ridiculous," but then used to just go along with it at times. And then there was the youngest one, who I want to say was called Lucy. Um, yeah, she just was very sensible. Always wore a cardigan and liked science and things, and kind of viewed it as a very exciting experiment to be living with aliens. So there was a bit of something for everybody in My Parents Are Aliens. But they used to get into like ridiculous scrapes because the parents just didn't understand life on Earth. And I don't properly understand how they'd got past any level of, you know, social services checks. But so every now and then someone used to come in and check on them and they had to pretend to be normal. And that's when chaos ensued. Something was always going off when that happened. Um, so yeah, that's good. That I'd love to watch that on Netflix. Somebody needs to put that on. I mean, Netflix supposedly needs to put that on, I guess, rather than anyone else. Um, kind of, kind of similar sort of vein to that. Well, not a similar sort of vein, but it had a similar, slightly silly but also funny sense of humour. Would be like Pepper Ann. It's animated and it was American, and some of the jokes were very, very American. But I used to really like that because like she was a bit of a tomboy and she used to like rollerblade to school and stuff and get into mischief, and she just didn't really care. She was ginger as well, which always helped. So that was good. Um, so yeah, there's lots and lots of kids shows that need to come back from my youth that people don't necessarily remember so well. Big Kids, that was good. That's another one that you could update actually. Have the kids be the parents this time because they'll be about old enough. They're about my age, and the premise of that was that 2 kids at school had taken their parents to a fundraising event where a hypnotist was on at school don't even ask me how that got past the school board, but it did. And they were basically embarrassed by the parents, and the hypnotist chose the parents out of the audience, and they were like, oh God, we've got to get out of here, I don't want to see this. And the hypnotist was like, well, okay, but if you sneak out, I'm going to do something. So they snuck out, and they never really worked out what the hypnotist had done to the parents. They presumed they'd done something like turn him into a chicken and then turned him back and it was all fine. What he'd actually done was every time they heard Ming, then the parents would regress to being like 4 or 5 years old and have paddies and play with dolls and cry and sulk and stuff and just act like spoiled toddlers. But who thought of that? I'll never know. I mean, as an idea go, can you imagine sitting in a board meeting going, guys, I've got it. The word Ming turns you into a child. But then they used to get into stuff like they couldn't go to parents' evening because the eldest child had been studying Hemingway. The youngest child at one point went to go swimming. It was just an ever increasingly unlikely series of events and, you know, stuff to do and words that came into the vocabulary that had Ming in them somewhere. And at the end of the series, I think they went to the hypnotist and he turned them back. And then it was kind of implied at the end of the series that he'd done something else to them. But then I don't think it ever came back, so I never really worked out what. So I'd like to see that on Netflix again. I think it's on YouTube. I think I watched it not so long ago, and the daughter has like the 90s dream bedroom. Like, she has one of those MacBooks that, I don't know if you remember, they used to have coloured backs, they used to bubble out. Like, I think the laptops were green and the computers were orange, or the other way around, I can't remember. But she had one of them. Posters everywhere, inflatable chairs. It was like, if you were a 90s girl, which I was, that was everything you ever wanted. So that, just for the sheer 90s-ness of it, because, you know, take me back to my youth and all that, I'd like to see that again properly. The Queen's Nose, but only the original Queen's Nose, that went a bit too far. The first series where Weird Uncle Ginger came back with the 50p. And do you know what my favourite episode was? Was when she wished with the Queen's Nose that her parents were more chilled out and they turned into punks and just had food fights and there was slobs, which was slightly too far. But that was the whole message of it, like, be careful what you wished for, because everything went to the extreme. And then she'd have to put them right and be grateful for what she had in the first place. Yeah, so only the first couple of series, if you could put them on Netflix, that'd be good. But there's just so many that you've forgotten about that you would like to see. I was watching Danger Mouse on there the other day, and it was the episode where Count Duckula first rocked up, and I was howling because I'd forgotten how funny Count Duckula was. So I'd like to see Count Duckula properly as a proper series on its own. Also, it took me till last week, at the age of 29 years old, he came on with like his lisp and everything, and he was like, I'll fight you, I'm a pugilist. And I was like, oh my god, all this time I never knew Count Duckula was ripping the mick out of Chris Eubank. I don't know how I made it to this point in my life without that fact. But now I know this is a fact, I'll share it with you. So Netflix, if you put Count Duckula on, the world can have this useless trivia as well. And wouldn't that be worth knowing? I mean, everyone's got shows from the childhood that they used to love that they feel are underappreciated and they'd like to see again. I just don't think there's any real major like access to them. You know, do we have to wait for like years and years and years until they come out as like a super retro thing, or they remake them? I mean, when they remade Danger Mouse, good lord, what were they thinking? Danger Mouse is David Jason and nobody else. And as much as I love Alexander Armstrong, you can't remake stuff from my youth. Like, that is CGI Fireman Sam. No, don't remake them. Reshow them on Netflix, because kids today will love them. I promise you. Just, how can you not? Plus, people my age have kids now that they can reintroduce to them, and they're so much better than the kids' stuff that's on TV now. So, who doesn't need a 90s retro Netflix binge?